And welcome into the Tuesday edition, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ian Safar here with you. We are presented by Green Ventures Landscaping. Get thicker grass, better color, and fewer bare spots with turf application. Visit greenventureslandscaping.com. We are live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership where the buzz is always about great service. Joe Rexrode, good morning. How are you?
I'm swell. How are you?
I'm swell, too.
Great.
Got a lot of sleep last night.
Yeah.
Game was over at like 3:30ish yesterday. I got out of there at about 5. Got home at about 6. It was beautiful.
Yeah. Well, how was that? How was that? I mean, that's great timing in terms of sleep. Maybe not in terms of traffic getting home.
Traffic wasn't great.
Yeah.
But I'll take it.
Yeah.
I'll take the trade-off.
Still take that. Yeah. I hope Europe enjoyed
I hope they did.
The game, the matinee. Tough one for the Preds.
It was not a great one for the Preds. We will get into that a little bit later in the show. Ian, how we doing? What's going on?
Good morning. Yeah, I guess Lucas Raymond showed out in Europe there. Forsberg scored. He showed out.
Sure.
Saros played well.
Yeah. Marco Kasper
there you
dialing it up for the Red Wings out there. A couple of
So, yeah, good European showcase.
Go Europe.
Yesterday over there. But doing good. Thanks. Happy, what is today? Tuesday?
Today is Tuesday.
Pretty warm out there. Feels a little stormy-ish
Kinda
almost
does.
the weather, like that feel where it's kind of cool, but that warm breeze almost feels like this week could be hopefully not too crazy, but yeah, happy Tuesday, everybody.
Dude, we're hitting 80 on Friday.
We're getting the 80s.
Did we mention that?
Yeah.
Woo.
I worry about
good.
that this time of year
I do too.
because the cold crash comes, and that's when just got to be prepared for severe weather season.
Yeah.
This spring.
Well,
You know,
I mean,
just
it
keep
was-
that on mind.
I believe, Joe, it was, I don't know, maybe 6 years ago today where
Yeah.
we were doing a show that basically turned into reading tornado updates all for
Emergency,
3 hours.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's true. So I guess that is not that there's any indication. We do have some,
Yeah, we're
some
good.
rain and stuff, but yeah, you're right. It is when it's this warm at this time of year, you do think about things like that.
We got a lot going on the program today. We'll have Greg Wyshynski from ESPN with us at 7:30. We'll get his thoughts on the Predators and the NHL trading deadline coming up on Friday. Bruce Feldman from The Athletic will be with us at 8:30. We got a bunch of different stuff to get into with Bruce on the football front, so looking forward to that. Taking your thoughts in the meantime, 615-737-1025, our phone number, 615-737-1025. Big move in the AFC South yesterday, Joe. The Houston Texans trading for David Montgomery, who has been a big part of what Detroit's done over the last few years. Obviously, with the continued emergence of Jahmyr Gibbs into one of the best backs in the entire league, Montgomery's role has diminished, and I think this past year probably the best example of that. I mean, look, it makes sense when you have a running back as good as Detroit has with Jahmyr Gibbs. You try to get him out on the field as much as you possibly can. And I believe the 158 carries that David Montgomery had this year were by far the fewest of his career. He's gone from 219 with Detroit when he first got there in 2023 down to 185 in 2024. And this year carried the ball in 17 games, 158 times. So some frustration apparently building from his side of things. He wanted to go somewhere where he would be utilized more. And the Houston Texans have traded for David Montgomery. They exchanged 4th and 7th round picks, center Juice Scruggs, and the 4th round pick will be in this year's draft, 7th round pick in 2027. So now David Montgomery down there in Houston with C.J. Stroud and the Texans. Joe, your thoughts on this move?
Yeah, I know some Lions fans who are upset about it, but yeah, he to me was not the same last year. He injured his knee the year before, came back great. All due respect to the toughness for trying to come back at the end and be part of the playoff run. I mean, when it happened, a lot of people were like, really? Because the diagnosis is just, you should not be doing this right now. So I don't know, like, if that means he's just never going to be the same again. He definitely wasn't the same guy last year. And obviously, and Jahmyr Gibbs, it's like, you gotta give that guy the ball more. He's just too good. So I don't know. I don't know how much of an impact he'll make for the Texans. I mean, I think it's worth a shot. Obviously, the hope is that, just like a lot of these things with injuries like that, leg injuries, the next year it gets better, but he's also not getting any younger. So he's a I mean, when he was right before that injury just 2 years ago, guy who obviously a power back, but he could house it too. He was one heck of a player there for a few years. So if Houston can get even like 80% of that guy, then that's gonna move the needle for them a little bit.
Well, the thing that's always stood out to me about him, and he's played for the Bears and the Lions, so I've watched Green Bay Packers defenders try to tackle him for a long time. I mean, he's so small from like a height standpoint. He gets so low to the ground, and he's so powerful. Like he's listed at 5'11", 230 pounds. I mean, the dude's an absolute animal to try to bring down. So, I mean, I don't imagine Titans linebacker is going to have a whole lot of fun trying to tackle him twice a year. Like you said, he'll be 29 next year, at that position. And particularly with like a guy like him and the way that he runs and how much contact is involved, how quickly does it start to go the other way? I mean, if you want to go by yards per attempt, he was at 4.5 this last year. It's actually up from 2024, 4.2, but he's always been right around that, at 4.5, like 4.6 in 2023 was the best mark that he's had. So he's never had like those huge numbers that we've seen from Derrick Henry and anything like that.
Yeah.
But if you watch it play, he's pretty darn good back. So what's he going to be at age 29 in his third stop? I don't know. I mean, the other part of this is Houston is totally revamping their offensive line again, and we'll see how that goes for them. But they had a very good offensive line for the most part until this past year in Detroit, and even this last year, like their offensive line in Detroit's in a better spot than Houston's currently is. So we'll see what that looks like.
Yeah, I look, if you can get a really good version of him, that should help. That even helps an offensive line. If you have just a power back who, like you said, I mean, he's definitely a tackle breaker without question. So it makes sense stylistically. It makes sense for them. Just a question of exactly what version of him it will be. And I mean, I tried to talk. I got a son who's a total lion slappy who I completely failed as a father, as I've said many times, and he's like, like terrible management from the Lions. The way you make excuses for them all the time about all these things, and this is terrible management.
This
David Montgomery
over the edge.
This is the thing that bothers you. But yeah, he's one of those guys. He can be a fan favorite, when he's playing well. So yeah, the Titans are. He's like you said, not fun to tackle. So we'll see if it really makes a difference for CJ Stroud.
It's interesting. Like if you're the Texans, you've got a decision coming up on what you're going to do with Stroud. I mean, my guess is, Joe, that they're going to get Stroud signed to a long-term extension. Like I understand he just struggled in the playoffs, and my guy Davis Mills, when called upon last year, stepped in there and went 3-0. So I understand that you've got another option there, I guess. But I think they're still committed to having this work out with Stroud here. Like to me, I like this move from their standpoint of it makes a lot of sense to try to run the ball if you're the Houston Texans with that defense, right? Like, I mean, you've got arguably the best defense in the league, and you're going to have to throw it, right? Like it's the NFL, everybody throws it, and you're going to have to throw it effectively. But if you can add a legitimate running game to your team with that defense, conventional wisdom would tell you that'd probably be the route you try to go right now. I know that everybody's all obsessed with the quarterbacks, and if they're going to win a Super Bowl, it's going to require CJ Stroud to play better than he's played the last couple of years. But there's nothing wrong with running the ball, particularly when you have maybe the best defense in the league.
Well, I agree, and that you could just end the sentence before that. Running the ball is just it's always the right answer, man. And yes, like you said, it works with what they do. If you can have a little ball control and just take a little bit of pressure off Stroud as you try to figure out that offensive line, and if it's bad and you ultimately can't protect him, then at some point it's not going to matter. They just can't seem to get, and this happens to a lot of teams, they just can't seem to get everything right. But also some of it is just how he's played, and that's a really interesting thing. There's been some examples recently in this league where it's like, well, you got to give the guy the extension, and you do. Again, Tua was early. So, but, is there any thought of like, what about just doing the 5th-year option? And the problem there then is you're like, okay, so now you have a quarterback who, what message are you sending to the guy who's supposed to be the face and leader of your franchise? It's a really interesting situation. I think you're probably right. That's what they're going to do. But like, it is a little bit alarming the way things have trended with him.
It is. And like you said, I mean, if you're on the one side, you're as prepared almost as you can possibly be. Like with a combination of the secondary they have and the pass rush that they have, their defense is championship level defense right now. And like if you can't get an offensive system or play to complement that fully, that would suck if you're a Houston Texans fan to be trotting out that defense right now and then just totally screw things up on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, it's it really sucks when you have an elite side of the ball and a terrible side. I mean, obviously, it's better than having two crappy sides of the ball like Titans have had the last few years. But like when you have a championship level, one or the other, and then the other side is just
dragging you down.
Yeah, and it shouldn't be, because there's enough there that you should be better than they have been the last couple of years.
So today is the final day for the franchise tag in the NFL. So what deals could be coming today and after today? Who could be making it to free agency, which, by the way, begins next week. We'll get into all that. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 1025 The Game. Taking your thoughts on our phone and text lines, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Joe, today is the final day that teams are allowed to use franchise and transition tags on players. I mean, the deadline, I believe, is at 3 o'clock Central Time today. So today, the final day that franchise tag, transition tags can be used. There are still some interesting options for both of those tags that are out there. Now, we've seen Kyle Pitts be franchised. We've seen George Pickens be franchised by the Dallas Cowboys. And, a big thing, I think we just talked, about another AFC South team in Houston. What are the Colts going to do? I think is an interesting one today because you've got a couple of options. There's the idea that maybe they could put the transition tag on Daniel Jones, who is obviously coming off not only the Achilles, but the fractured tibia that he was also dealing with as well. So tough combo there for Daniel Jones. But when he was in for the Colts last year, played pretty well. Had the Colts as one of the best teams in the league before the injury took place there. So obviously a decision to make on the Colts front there. And then there's Alec Pierce. That you could franchise tag Alec Pierce. Now, that'd be a heck of a number for Alec Pierce for a year, but you'd at least have him back in the fold at that point without allowing him to get to free agency. So going to be interesting to see what, if anything, happens with the Colts today. There's the Trey Hendrickson situation in Cincinnati. Is he going to be tagged, or does he make it to free agency and see what the open market looks like for him? A couple of really interesting situations to monitor today. But, Joe, we're going to find out today whether or not some of these players get tagged. And if they don't, you can then ramp up that conversation of what it's going to look like for NFL free agents. I mean, you can not tag Alec Pierce today if you're the Colts and still come to an agreement on a contract with Alec Pierce tomorrow, I guess. But it'd be interesting to see at the end of today who's tagged, who's not tagged, because if they're not, I mean, obviously, at that point, the leverage is gone from the team side of things, and that increases the odds that those players are making it to free agency.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Like Daniel Jones was obviously one of the surprises of the league last year. Serious injury, and he's a big part of his game is obviously his mobility. So, I think at this point, like, they're probably going to lose him if they don't tag him, I guess. But also, if you're him, it's like, it worked out pretty well here. I think in both cases, like you could make the case that, like, stick with us, we can negotiate, figure this out. But it would seem likely that they're going to put the tag on one of them. Yeah, like you said, and we've talked about before, that's just a big number for Pierce. I know that Titans fans, we got Richard in the YouTube chat hoping that, it's Jones and is tagged, and then Pierce is out there as a free agent. And I think that the Titans and a lot of teams would probably be interested in him. And it's just really so let's see, the non-exclusive franchise tag quarterback is $44 million.
Yeah.
The transition $37.8 million.
By the way, the franchise for Pierce would be $27.298 million.
Yeah. It's it's a big number. It's a big number for him, but it's also, again, if you can you do that and in the meantime figure out a deal that maybe levels it out a little bit over years after this year. I guess you could look at it that way if you're the Colts. But again, it's just it comes down to just Jones. How important is it for them to keep him? If he does go out there, how many people are interested in Daniel Jones? Did he do enough last year with the Colts? And then still coming with the Achilles now, that someone would be like, you know what? He showed enough to me that he's a starting quarterback.
Well, I don't know. The big question I would have if I'm the Colts or another team is, when's he going to be able to play?
Yeah.
Like, is he going to be ready by the time training camp opens? And also, how effective is he? I mean, look, I understand that repairing an Achilles now is not quite the same as it used to be. Like, we've seen guys come back from Achilles injuries sooner than they used to. But I think we've also seen, Joe, guys come back from Achilles injuries sooner than they used to, and it still takes, in some cases, most cases, probably an additional year before they're back to what they were before then. So what's that going to look like for Daniel Jones? I don't know. I mean, there's a thought that the transition tag could make more sense for Daniel Jones out there in Indianapolis. which would just mean, I mean, you mentioned the non-exclusive franchise tag. If you apply that, then if teams can match the offer, or
you get
draft picks back.
Yeah.
If transition tag, you wouldn't. So the number on the transition tag is lower. Like if they transition tag Daniel Jones, the number is 37.8 million.
Right.
And the number for Pierce, which they're not going to transition tag Pierce, but the number there would be 23.52 million. But you can negotiate with other teams, and if you decide not to match, you get nothing back for those players. So we'll see what happens on the transition tag front. But the injury part of this, I think, really complicates it for Daniel Jones, because I think, Joe, it would be complicated enough for the sample size that he had last year, particularly like if you're another team. It's like, okay, is this what he is? Or was this a really good 10, 11 game stretch from Daniel Jones, and I'm going to commit long-term money to that? I mean, I think that decision is tough enough anyway. And then you add the Achilles injury on top of it, and it just makes everything messy, which is why here we are on deadline day, Joe, and they have not come to a decision yet.
Yeah, I'm going to read this paragraph from our buddy James Boyd, covers the Culture Athletic, friend of the show. He says, quote, essentially, Indianapolis's tag decision will come down to which side blinks first, Jones or the team. If the Colts use the non-exclusive franchise tag or transition tag, they run the risk of losing Pierce. Pierce did say at the end of the season that retaining Jones would go a long way toward keeping him in Indy, but that was before a bunch of other teams could potentially offer him generational wealth. On the other hand, if the Colts put the non-exclusive franchise tag on Pierce, it opens the door for other QB-needy teams to court Jones without any restrictions. The QB would then have complete control over where he plays next season, and if he were to leave, his departure would cripple the franchise, end quote. That sounds bad for the Colts.
That does sound
Titans
bad.
fans
That
enjoy.
does not sound good.
You should enjoy this, Titans fans. You know, misery loves company.
Well, that is the question. Like, if it's not Daniel Jones, who's your quarterback going to be?
Because what Richard
it ain't
said,
going to be Anthony Richardson.
he's out there asking for a trade. Which again, what are you getting for? I have no idea. There's probably a team out there that's like
somebody will be
take
intrigued
a flyer.
by the talent.
Yeah, like, take a flyer on him. Sure, but yeah, you are. And again, and this is where it's like, to me, first of all, just anything with Chris Ballard is like the man who cannot be fired, Chris Ballard. But you can't sell out for everything like last year, right? And then risk losing Daniel Jones. I don't think, can you?
I don't think so.
Not, like, you're just like, then what's your answer? Like,
well, by the way, you don't have a first round pick. You traded that away,
right? So it's like, I mean, I suppose I'm trying to think, like, okay, could they then do what the Colts have done so many times and be like, Tua, Cousins, something like that? Yeah. I mean, you could, but I feel like you have to look at it like a 2-year window, and essentially understanding, like you said, like this next year, Jones may not play the whole season. He may be limited. If he can't move well, and you wouldn't expect that he would be able to move nearly as well, his game is limited. That's a big part of his game. But then that in 27, you have him fully healthy, and you have this team that, again, we did see last year, until things fell apart, was incredibly good, way better than anyone expected them to be. I think you probably just have to lean in on that.
It's interesting. I'm looking at the Spotrac projection for the annual average value of what Alec Pierce could get. They've got it at $20.2 million on the open market, which is probably about right. Like, it's certainly not $27 million like the franchise tag will give him, but you get to free agency. As we've discussed, he's obviously a legitimate deep threat when you're averaging like 22 yards a catch in the National Football League. And it's just not a very strong, like, you get to the actual free agent part of it and the guys that are out there, and there's not a ton of options that these teams are going to have at wide receiver. I mean, Romeo Doubs is a good player. He's very different than Alec Pierce, right? I mean, it's very different things. So around $20 million, that's the going rate right now. So if you're the Colts, can you get long-term deals locked down with either one of them? I think they want long, I mean, and long is relative, but long-term deals with both of them. They just obviously have not been able to do that yet. And here we are on deadline day where you're about to lose your leverage.
Yeah. So I guess if nothing happens today, I guess in a way you could look at it like things are progressing, and they actually that might be the best thing for them. Like, is that they actually figured out that they didn't need to do either one, and that they're trying to get those deals done. Doesn't mean they will, but maybe that's a positive sign for the Colts.
615-737-1025 is our phone number. It is deadline day for the franchise and transition tags in the National Football League. We'll take your thoughts on that. Who could be out there in free agency for the Titans? Who are your targets for the Titans in free agency as the legal tampering window, Joe, opens, I believe, a week from yesterday? So there you go. We'll get into that. 615-737-1025. Robby and Rexrode, 1025 The Game.
Let's start right there with Alec Pierce and Daniel Jones in Indianapolis, because this is one of the fascinating situations we're going to be monitoring up until Tuesday at 4 p.m. Eastern time. For the Indianapolis Colts, you're only allowed to apply one tag. So the Colts have, as we've been reporting over the past week, been engaged with Daniel Jones, trying to hammer out a long-term deal. Jones wants to be in Indianapolis. The Colts want him in Indianapolis. But can the sides come to a number that makes sense? If not, then you would expect that they are going to use a tag, whether that's the franchise or perhaps more likely the transition tag on Jones, freeing up Alec Pierce to hit the market if the Colts can't work out a deal with him. It does have shades of the Daniel Jones, Saquon Barkley situation some years ago with the New York Giants. Certainly, Mike, the Colts are hoping that things end up a little bit cleaner than they did in that case.
How's Tom Pelissero on the situation in Indianapolis? Taking your thoughts at 615-737-1025. Our phone number, 615-737-1025. We had some people ask about Tyler Linderbaum from the Baltimore Ravens. This was from Jeff Sarebek, who covers the Ravens for The Athletic.
Friend of the show.
And this is from the piece that Rexrode also took part in.
Ooh.
At the what you learned from the NFL Combine. You go down through all the teams, and there's blurbs on all of them. I want to read Baltimore's little blurb here. This is from Jeff Sarebek. The Ravens aren't thrilled with where contract negotiations stand with center Tyler Linderbaum. While general manager Eric DeCosta revealed that the team had made a market-setting offer to retain the three-time Pro Bowl center, it was a significant departure from how the normally tight-lipped organization does business. It suggests that a deal wasn't close at the time of DeCosta's comments and that the Ravens are trying to get Linderbaum's side to engage. Talk in Indianapolis was that teams are lining up to take a run at Linderbaum, and he's primed to make over $20 million per year. The Ravens are running out of time to keep him off of the open market. So, I mean, that's interesting. Obviously, we've talked about Linderbaum. I mean, he's at center, who the Titans now obviously need. That would be a heck of a move if they're able to pull that off. Like you said, it's going to cost probably over $20 million per year on the open market. I mean, that's no problem for the Titans. They got a ton of money, and he is an all-pro level player. So I have no problem with that. I am very interested to see here if the Ravens land a deal with him. I mean, it has been put out there that they don't necessarily have a whole lot of interest in applying a franchise tag to him because you're talking about, offensive line at that point. So that's a heck of a number for him. So very interested to see what that looks like. Obviously, if he makes it to free agency, there will be a ton of teams interested in him. But if I'm the Titans, I would certainly add my name to that list.
Well, without question. And by the way, I don't think we've talked about this, but Tyler Biadasz, who I think I said his name correctly, has been released by the Commanders. I think that's a cap move. Obviously, it's one of those things where it is a cap move. If they were completely enamored with him, you'd suck it up, right? You would think. But there's another guy at the position that I think a lot of teams probably interested in that. Titans should absolutely, I think, be involved in either possibility for sure. Linderbaum is, it's first of all, that is one of the things about this league. The fact that it's such a weird thing that you have the tag applies to just all offensive linemen. I mean, I guess that basically guarantees that an interior offensive lineman will never be tagged. I'm sure, has one ever been tagged? I mean, maybe.
I don't know. I have to go back and look through, but probably not very often.
I'd be willing to bet like a small amount of money that an interior offensive lineman's never been tagged. But if he's out there, it's going to cost you. But it's so important. It's so important to have a veteran, reliable center and not have people shuffling in and out there and let's try Levin and let's try this guy or here comes a rookie and let's see, or maybe Slater can develop into that. Get someone is good.
Trevor says the Titans better be flexing that league-leading cap space and go after Linderbaum if he's out there. I would agree. Like, that would be somebody I'd be very interested in. Tyler says, who would you rather pay more money to, Daniel Jones coming off the Achilles or Malik Willis?
Good question.
I find the idea of Jones making $44 million as crazy as paying Malik Willis $35 a year.
To be fair,
good time to be a quarterback.
Yeah. Well, the thing is with Daniel Jones, he did have a great season with the Giants, which included a playoff win on the road. Like that did happen. Like the proof of concept, there's a pretty big difference here between the two. He also has had a lot more time to not look great as a starter in the league, which he did. But then I don't know, man. Last year, at some point, is it smoke and mirrors? Like at some point last year, I feel like it was like, I don't know, man. This guy's not bad. So if you're talking about those two numbers, 44, if we're talking about AAV of 44 versus 35, I think I'd probably lean Jones. I think, Willis is, I'd love to see it work out. It could work out. By the way, what about Willis to the Colts? But there's still so much to find out about him, to me, in my opinion. And, of course, I'm biased somewhat by having watched him closely here during the early stages of his career, It's like it's still, I think, a little bit of a disconnect when you think about that guy becoming a top-tier starter in the NFL. But if he does, it's just another great example of the quarterback development timeline can just vary for different people.
Yeah, I mean, if you had Linderbaum and brought him in as your center, you'd be talking about a right tackle that you felt significantly better about at the end of the season. Now, there's still, I think, a lot left to prove for J.C. Latham. But then you add Linderbaum to the center part of it, a left guard that you're feeling really, really good about right now, and Peter Skoronski. And then Mandor at left tackle. We'll see what happens on that front. But, I mean, Linderbaum would be – I mean, that's a heck of a piece to add up front if you're the Titans at that point.
You should be all in on it.
Yeah.
Because it's just like you look at it, you do look at it like, positional, some things you can't get, right? We always talk about that. You're just not – I mean, the best you're going to get is Mandor on the open market at that position, right? Yeah. And they got him. It's better than not, it's better than what they've been doing there. Pass rushers, rare. You can get a guy like Bud Dupree, coming off an ACL, but rare that you get a top one. So interior, if you can really have a good answer at interior offensive line, good answer at linebacker, safety, running back, things like that in free agency, then you use more of your draft picks for those positions that you can't get in free agency, right? I mean, that's kind of the idea. So this would be absolutely worth a big spend to shore that up.
Yeah, for sure. So, again, just because, I mean, look, Linderbaum is kind of separate from the tag discussion because I don't think he's going to get tagged anyway. But it is a situation to monitor. I mean, look, this happens in not just football, but sports all the time where teams aren't thrilled with how contract negotiations are going, a week before free agency begins, and then all of a sudden a deal's made. So,
and that's the most likely outcome, right? The Ravens are not. I can't believe they'd let this happen.
I wouldn't think so, but I mean, market-setting deal. How much does Linderbaum think he can make out there is also the other part of this. That's going to be interesting to see. But there will be no shortage of suitors for him if he makes it to free agency. Like, the Jets, I would imagine, like one move that I wouldn't be surprised to see today is Breece Hall getting tagged by the Jets. Like that, I think that absolutely can happen today.
It's flashing on the TV right behind you as you say that.
There you go. So that could happen today.
They're going to tag him.
It doesn't sound like Seattle's going to tag Kenneth Walker. So that's another situation to monitor today and then over the next week here of if there's whether or not there's any progress towards a deal from Kenneth Walker in the Seattle front when it comes to running backs.
At his age, with what he just did as a reigning Super Bowl MVP, he'd probably get for a running back, keep that in the proper context, probably get a pretty good chunk of change. Again, same thing with, and this is, he's a fast, let's say he's out there and we're talking a lot about Jeremiah Love. We're going to talk a lot about Jeremiah Love the next few weeks, right? So to me, there's a great example of you absolutely go pay the free agent. And then we just stop the Jeremiah Love talk. Look, if the Titans take Jeremiah Love and it comes down to that, I'm not going to be mad about it, but it's like he better be an absolute superstar.
Yeah.
Because a guy like Kenneth Walker, who's really freaking good, couldn't get to the market at that position. That's the thing, right? Like, even a guy like that can get to the market sometimes. And I know he would be a good productive back. I know with a decent offensive line, he's a 13 to 1,500 yard back for you. Okay. Is he going to be a star? Now you're just like, okay, in this draft, it's going to be edge or receiver or offensive tackle, but probably not this year. But like positions that you can't get in free agency, right?
Inside linebacker,
There you go. I mean, I will say, like,
kicker.
Another thing, but in seriously, I won't be mad if they draft Sonny Styles either. It's the same. It's like Love and Styles, both things you can get in free agency. But if they're going to be like, if you're sure they're going to be unbelievable great players, then okay.
By the way, the Spotrac projection for Kenneth Walker is $9 million a year. So we'll see.
God, it's amazing.
It's also like if that's what it is, it's hard to
these poor running backs.
Well, if that's what it is, like it's hard to like. How could you let him go if you're Seattle? If that's what it ends up being, it'll be more than that if he makes it to the free agent.
Yeah. But still, like it's so insulting to even like say that out loud in this league, right? Where we have centers trying to make 25 mil.
Daniel Jones is going to get paid $40-some-odd million a year, and Kenneth Walker's like, okay.
Daniel Jones,
can I get to 10?
Daniel Jones is basically a running back who throws every once in a while.
Malik Willis
45 mil.
Is going to get paid $30 million a year this offseason. And Kenneth Walker just won Super Bowl MVP. And it's like, hey, guys, how are we doing over here?
I can't afford going to Disney World.
615-737-1025 is our phone number. More your thoughts on the NFL franchise tag front, plus some interesting comments from Josh Heupel that we will get into as well. Robby and Rexrode, 1025 The Game. Tonight, Vanderbilt men's basketball taking on Ole Miss with an 8 o'clock tip-off pregame at 7:30 on 94.9 The Fan. Coverage presented by Gary Force Acura. We will get into the Predators and the Red Wings from yesterday coming up to be in the 7 o'clock hour. More thoughts on the NHL trading deadline coming up. We'll have Greg Wyshynski at 7:30. So looking forward to that on today's show. Taking your thoughts at 615-737-1025. Joe, some interesting comments from Josh Heupel. So Chris Lowe put together a piece at On 3, basically talking about Heupel, the passion of Tennessee's fan base, and the stakes for Josh Heupel heading into this year. He wrote, quote, Heupel keenly aware of the stakes as he enters his 6th season at Tennessee. And, it's talking about, obviously, Indiana just won a national championship. So if you're a Tennessee fan, it's not just Tennessee, but you saw Indiana win a national championship. You saw Ole Miss make a run to the semifinals this year in the college football playoff. And it has Tennessee fans saying, hello, what about us? When's that happening for us? And this was the quote from Josh Heupel yesterday with Chris Lowe. Quote, my goal is to win the championship too, and that's why I want to be here. I know you can do it here. We're in a race to get it done as fast as possible. I love the people that we have here, and that's our staff and our players. We're going to go compete for that thing every day. So, like the actual quote itself, Tennessee fans were running with this yesterday, and it sounds like everything Josh Heupel always says, right? So, I mean, there's nothing wrong with the quote part of it. I just that mindset, I think, highlights, though, what this is going to be for Josh Heupel this year with right now a quarterback room that features 2 really young guys and a veteran transfer that they come in that I don't think is going to play. So we'll see. And a schedule that's going to be really tough. But that point that Lowe makes is, when Indiana just rolls through and marches their way to a national championship, and teams like Ole Miss put together a magical run and get through a semifinal, when you're a team like Tennessee, a program like Tennessee, with all the money that you've invested into this and all the, the tradition and history of your program, and I understand they haven't won a national championship since 1998. So it's been a long time at this point. But that does nothing but increase expectations moving forward here. And it's going to be really interesting to see how Heupel handles it, and particularly if this year goes how right now I think it might go, which is 7-5, 8-4, somewhere in that neighborhood. What is that going to mean for Josh Heupel moving forward here?
Yeah, well, it'll mean a 2027 on I think it's kind of a toasty seat if that's the case. But it's also like you say that, but it's like, show me how it looks. Is it that way with some close losses and you're like, oh, the quarterback situation next year is going to be really good. Okay. Well, then everything is different based on that. How it looks is so important. The thing about this is, and this question is, we are looking at it through the Tennessee lens, and it's Heupel, and it's an obvious thing. But, like, how many coaches around the country are getting the same question? Hey,
a lot.
Signetti just won the whole freaking thing in year 2 at Indiana. Yeah. Like the Ole Miss thing you mentioned, one thing about that is Lane Kiffin was there, had a head start, and has built something. I mean, you think about the golf ball game, as I was on the sideline dodging bottles of water and we're smashing into photographers next to me. We were under attack from the Tennessee students. But
do you have any mustard thrown your way?
No, I there were some golf balls flying around. Mostly it was like, I mean, I guess these kids, they should have been hydrating because it was a night game, and boy, there was some drinking going on that day. But it was like these kids had these like full water bottles. Like, why aren't you hydrating with the water bottles? How do you have a full water bottle? I mean, I hope that's what it was full with.
Well, I
water.
don't know.
But they were just raining out, raining out of the sky, man. I mean, that was something else. But anyway, you think about that.
I would let them pee around the field.
That was also Joe Milton. It's 4th down. This is the last play of the game.
We're going to run out of bounds.
I'm going to gain 3 and go out of bounds. But so he that program, point being, before I went off on that tangent, had a little head start in Lane Kiffin. Obviously did a great job. Lane Kiffin, what did he do there that he thought wasn't sustainable? And part of the reasoning he gave for going to LSU is that you had to do too much in the portal to get up to speed at Ole Miss, and that's not sustainable. Whereas at LSU. He believes you can do more out of high school recruiting, and that's what Josh Heupel's tried to do. I think it's just like at some point, and I thought it might be a little bit more this year. You probably have to like really go out there and spend money. We look, if there's one thing Danny White's done at Tennessee, it is get them on the top tier now with everybody else financially. Like their budget is with the big boys. It wasn't.
Yep.
Like 5 years ago, it was not. It was the second tier. It's the top tier now. And that to me means that sometimes you just have to go out there and get in the mix with some of these schools. Like Texas is out there getting Cam Coleman and getting Hollywood Smothers and loading up. And Texas Tech loaded up again this offseason. Like Tennessee, I think you have to do that.
You play Texas this year. So there's that. Texas is on your schedule. I mean, obviously Alabama on your schedule, LSU, Texas A&M. And that's not even factoring in. Like, I have no idea what Vanderbilt's going to be, but what if Jared Curse is really good, right? Like, Vanderbilt's on your schedule. You got to go on the road to Vanderbilt. You got Auburn. I don't know what they are, but Golish's, I'm interested to see what that looks like there.
Like, they're going to come out and score points.
You got
Auburn will score points this year.
Beamer on the schedule, which you better not lose. You want to get on the hot seat with me? Lose that game.
Where is that?
Oh, it's at South Carolina.
Is it? Yeah. They actually, again, did some pretty good retaining. But, yeah, it's but the pressure is just – it's on him. It's on everyone now. Totally different. Like, Signetti is absolutely, like, the enemy of the coach.
Yeah.
Because it's like there's just no excuses anymore. Like, so basically, that guy's just a way better coach than you.
Than all of you.
What else is there? Like, and even if you want to point to, well, he's going to have the number one pick. Yeah. Well, he went out and got him in the portal, and no one was talking about Fernando Mendoza as any kind of top pick before he did what they did last year. So, like, there's just no excuses for anybody, and there's just no more. Well, you got to get your play, your time. And of course, Heupel's been here long enough anyway. So, critical year, critical offseason. And I just think, the development of a young quarterback here has never been at more of a premium, for Tennessee. Well, but again, if you do things this year that set up where you could see it in the next year, I think that is that's where the record has to be put in the right context.
Oh, and the quarterback part of it, I mean, the interesting thing is they're going to have whoever the starting quarterback is, they're going to have two of the top weapons coming back in the SEC. Like, Staley was great last year. Matthews was really good. Like, they're on your team. So, you would expect for both of those guys, there'd be a jump from last year to this year too, where they're better. So that should help you as a quarterback, but there's a whole lot that goes into it, as we saw last year. Like, they couldn't make a stop defensively last year when they needed to. How much different is that this year under Jim Knowles? There's a lot that goes into it. And frankly, I guess we never know how it plays out until we actually see it. But the schedule undoubtedly is harder this year for Tennessee heading into it.
No, it's a brutal schedule. It's an unforgiving schedule. I think, but this year, I think especially on defense, yeah, so you're switching things up at DC. You went and paid a guy. You paid a guy to get him at DC, right? This is where, like, the philosophy of Heupel, and I don't disagree with it in general. Again, Georgia's at a higher level, but doing the same thing, and other programs, Alabama, higher level, doing the same thing. This is where development of guys who've been in your program multiple years needs to pay off, right? They have some talent in the program.
615-737-1025, our phone number. Tough result for the Preds yesterday against the Red Wings. We'll get into that game. We'll get into the trade deadline as well. Some interesting comments from Elliot Friedman. All that coming up. Robby and Rexrode, 1025 The Game. Hour number 2, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5 The Game. We are presented by Green Ventures Landscaping, outdoor patios, landscaping design, lawn maintenance, and more. Visit greenventureslandscaping.com. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ian Safar here with you on this Tuesday morning. Greg Wyshynski from ESPN will be with us at 7:30, and we will get into the Predators and the NHL trading deadline with him. So looking forward to that. Bruce Feldman coming up at 8:30 from The Athletic. A lot of stuff on the football front to get into with Bruce. So all that coming later in the show, taking your thoughts, 615-737-1025. Joe, it was not a good day for the Predators yesterday. They lose in regulation to the Red Wings, 4-2 the final. And Seattle wins last night, which actually means Seattle jumped Edmonton in the Pacific Division for the moment. So the final wild card team in the Western Conference as of this morning is the Edmonton Oilers at 66 points. So that's interesting.
That is interesting.
We'll see
Who's their goalie
I
right
won't
now?
last.
It's Jari. He's in there, but it's Jari and Connor Ingram. It ain't going well.
That seems like it could be an issue.
It's a big issue. It is not. I mean, when they made the trade for Jari, I was like, really? You think that's going to be your answer? Is Tristan Jari in goal? And so far, it's worked out where it's not their answer. So it's going to be interesting to see what Edmonton does there. But, I mean, Seattle beat Carolina. Carolina has been virtually unstoppable lately, and Seattle at home beats them last night. So not a result that you're looking for there if you're the Predators. Look, the game yesterday, I thought the Predators were fine. It was back and forth in the first period. Second period, they got a little loose with it. You know, Detroit attacked them on the rush. But look, it's hard for me to get too upset at the Predators yesterday. They got totally screwed. I mean, the Roman Josi non-call was atrocious. I mean, he got pitchforked out there, and it led to a 2-on-1 shorthanded rush that the Red Wings finished off. I mean, it's just a horrific non-call. And I understand the Predators on the power play. Like, I thought even beyond that, it was a horrifically officiated game yesterday. Like, there's too many. Like, there was one play where Saros basically got tackled in the crease, and they originally called it a goal, and then went back and finally waved it off. It's like, of all the things you guys wave off immediately, that's not one of them. I just thought it was a horrifically officiated game yesterday. But, you know, as Brunette pointed out, you knew heading into the game that Detroit's a pretty good rush team. And there were some times, especially in the second period yesterday, where they just fed right into the rush, and you can't do that against Detroit. So,
yeah, you know, it's that was an unbelievably bad call, or unbelievably bad non-call, miss. But you know, you've also, I mean, you've got to try to control as much as you can control in this situation. And I mean, to me, like I don't know what the line is, but obviously this is not where they wanted to be at this point with 2 games left before the deadline.
So 2 games left before the deadline, and now the question is, you know, what's going to happen? They do play tonight. They take on Columbus. So if you can win tonight, you kind of keep yourself right on the threshold there. If you lose today, that could be a problem. So we'll see what that part of it looks like. Elliot Friedman had a couple of interesting thoughts on the Predators kind of moving. He kind of opened his 32 Thoughts podcast yesterday with thoughts on the Predators. Let's start on the Stamkos front here, because, you know, we talked yesterday about Stamkos, the original report from Pierre LeBrun about teams he may be open to. Alex Doherty talked to him in the aftermath of that and said, you know, 0 chance he's waiving his no movement clause. Here's what Elliot Friedman had to say yesterday on the 32 Thoughts podcast about what he's hearing on the Stamkos front.
The panel was Liam McHugh, Paul Bissonnette, Anson Carter, and special guest Tuukka Rask. And I got asked about Steven Stamkos. And I referenced a story where Stamkos was quoted as saying he wasn't going to waive. And I said, I am not coming on the TNT show and saying that one of the most popular teammates in the NHL, Stamkos, is a liar. Well, someone saw me that, and they sent me a note. And that story that was in Nashville was in response to a report from Pierre LeBrun that if Stamkos was asked to waive, he would consider Dallas, Minnesota, or Tampa Bay. And someone reached out, and they wanted to tell me that the truth of this whole Stamkos situation is somewhere in the middle. They said that, you know, Pierre's story was accurate in the sense that if Stamkos was asked to waive. Those are the kinds of teams he would consider. And basically, what I was told is that the Predators players don't know what GM Barry Trotz is going to do. He has not approached his guys and said, I need to know if you're willing to waive his no trade clause for situation X. And I've talked about Ryan O'Reilly a lot and how he's told the team that he doesn't want to go and that he wants to be part of the Nashville team for the playoff push. And Stamkos, I was told, is in the same boat. He doesn't want to leave either. He wants to stay with the team and push them towards the playoffs. However, I was told that the one situation that could get him to change his mind would be if and only if the team decided they were going to do a complete sell-off. And then in that case, if Stamkos was approached and asked if he'd be willing to go, he would consider going to certain contenders. And I assume that Pierre is right about the likes of the Stars, the Wild, and his former team, the Lightning. However, it is his first choice, his desire to compete, stay, and go to the playoffs there. And if there's a sell-off, then we'll see.
So that was,
However,
yeah, that was Friedman yesterday on the 32 Thoughts podcast. So I said it yesterday. I flashed back to some comments at the end of last year from Stamkos at the end of season stuff. And there was all sorts of stuff going on then, like the March or so comments and all that stuff. But, one thing he was asked about was, how committed here is he moving forward? And basically his response was, as long as we're committed to winning, I'm here. If we're not, then we're probably having a different conversation at that point, which kind of goes right in line with what Elliot Friedman's talking about there. So I found those comments on the Stamkos front pretty interesting there.
yeah. So my total takeaway from all of it is, and Alex Doherty asked him, he said, 0, and I like that. That's what you expect. Like someone in that position is probably not gonna be like, well, let me tell you which teams I'd waive it for, but there's an asterisk, there's an exception, there's a possibility. And to me, it's like, especially if you had the combination of like, I don't know, someone goes first, I guess, Halla gets traded or something, and it's like, okay, well, you just weaken the team for a 3rd round pick or whatever, and then it's okay, so it's starting to look that way, and then it's like Tampa is like somehow figures out a way to make it work or something.
Yeah,
like
it.
that.
I mean, I think it also is like if Barry Trotz approaches you and like, hey, this is what we're doing. Like, we're gonna sell.
Yeah.
So like, whether a move has already been made or not, like if Barry Trotz, if they lose tonight and Barry Trotz walks in there Wednesday and is like, hey, we're selling, and O'Reilly, be prepared. Like start being thinking about where you want to go. Like in those kind of things. Stamkos, same thing. Like, would you be willing to move? Then I think that changes the math because that kind of shows you at that point, what your team thinks about your playoff chances there. So that part of it is going to be interesting. I mean, my guess still is that the trade deadline is going to come and go, and Steven Stamkos is going to be a member of the Nashville Predators. But there are rapid decisions coming up. Like tonight's game, pretty important when it comes to the playoff push here. If you lose that one, it's not good. Like they really need to win. If they want to keep this thing together, they probably really need to win the next 2, would be my advice.
Yeah. And like you said, it may be as simple as lose today, start talking about stuff tomorrow.
Could be.
Win today, hold off.
Yeah. 615-737-1025, our phone number. Some more comments from Elliot Friedman on Ryan O'Reilly that we will get into coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 1025 The Game. Today, Vanderbilt baseball takes on Central Arkansas at 4:30. Catch all the action on 102.1 The Ville. Coverage presented by Gary Force Acura. We'll have Greg Wyshynski coming up here at 7:30. We'll get into the NHL trading deadline with him, taking your thoughts on the Predators at 615-737-1025. We mentioned the comments that Elliot Friedman had on Steven Stamkos. He also addressed the Ryan O'Reilly situation as well. Here's what Elliot Friedman had to say on his 32 Thoughts podcast.
I don't think anything's impossible, and I do believe Trotz has been asked about it. But I just heard, and again, like, things can change with one phone call. I really hate making demonstrative statements at this time of the year. I just heard it was unlikely he was going to move now. And the same goes for O'Reilly. O'Reilly doesn't have it written, but he's been given the control, but teams have not, even though it's been like, no, he doesn't want to leave. No, teams have not run away from it. And they've come back to him and come back to the Predators and been saying, hey, we still want to trade for you. And I've heard that even though Nashville has said he doesn't want to go anywhere, they have reserved the right to go to him too and say, if we get an offer we like, then we're going to take it to him. We're not, like, I haven't heard that they've said we're just going to do it. Like, that hasn't come across my lap, but I've heard that they've reserved the right to say, we can take it to you and we want you to consider it.
So that was the O'Reilly part of this, where, look, it's pretty clear Ryan O'Reilly doesn't want to go anywhere, and we talked about that. It's also clear that there's a ton of interest for him out there. So, and Friedman's point essentially there was, they're going to try as much as they can to honor Ryan O'Reilly's wishes here, but if there's an offer that they really, really like, that they're going to approach him about it. Look, it's their organization, and they can do whatever they want. I kind of think sometimes they're being a little bit too nice here. Like, I love Ryan O'Reilly. We talked yesterday a lot about how important Ryan O'Reilly is. If you get an offer that you love from Ryan O'Reilly and he doesn't want to go, sometimes you just have to say, buddy, I'm sorry, we got to take this offer. Like, look, I understand having respect for Ryan O'Reilly. I've got a ton of respect for Ryan O'Reilly. I know how important Ryan O'Reilly is. But your job is to do what's best for your organization. Your job is not to do what's best for Ryan O'Reilly. And if the Predators get an offer that is substantial, which I think they can, we'll see, on the O'Reilly front, if it comes out that they passed up on it because Ryan O'Reilly didn't want to go anywhere, that's not going to go over well with this fan base.
And that's the thing. The way that Friedman explained it there is they'll take it to him. Okay. And I think that's better than, hey, Ryan, your flight to, pack your bags. It's over. Let me blindside you. Okay. So you take it to him. But then what if he says, no, then what? Oh, okay. Never mind. You can't do it. You take it to him and say, listen, I got an offer that's really good, and we think we're going to do this. I just want you to know. That's how you take it to him. You don't take it to him and ask him, right? You can't do that.
I mean, again, I understand they've got all the respect in the world for Ryan O'Reilly. Hey, look, we talked yesterday about, you can extend him on July 1st. Like, if you want to, like, you can keep him around. But to me, at 35 years old, if you get a huge offer for him, and look, if you get an offer for him to the point where you're considering it, which means that you're kind of punting on the rest of this season, and you don't do it because he doesn't want to move, that's malpractice. I'm sorry. Like, I said it yesterday. They have not had this opportunity very often where they've had either, number one, been in position where they could sell and get somebody like this, or get a return like I think they could get, or number two, that they've had players worth it, right? Like, they have a player right now who's 35 years old, who's got all the skins on the wall, who's having a great year. By the way, I had another point yesterday. He was having a great year that there's going to be a heavy amount of interest in. It just, to me, it would be malpractice if you don't make the move only because he doesn't want to go somewhere. I'm sorry. Like, you can't operate that way if you're the Predators.
Yeah. Pete Houston says, just trade him and re-sign him when he's a free agent. Well, he's not a free agent this summer. So, and that's part of the reason teams love this. Like, you get an extra year tacked on. It's not just a rental.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, and then you factor in the whole, just the fact that Barry Trotz is lame duck GM. I don't know that changes like what he does. Like, you're going to do the job either way, whether there's been nothing that ever happened and you're just the GM, or we know the situation now. I don't know why it would really change how you do the job, but I do think that, like, you can't go out like that. You can't go out not making a deal that could make a difference for the future of the franchise. If indeed that deal comes across your desk.
Yeah. Like, like I said, I think it's got to be good. Like, I'm not giving Ryan
But it's
O'Reilly,
going to be, right?
I
Like,
think
it's going to be good. There's going to be a good offer.
I would think so. I mean, look, I don't know what Barry Trotz's price is for Ryan O'Reilly. I would assume it's pretty high. Like, it needs to be pretty high.
Sure.
So, but if somebody meets that price, I think you got to do it. Like, I just don't. I don't think it makes a whole lot of sense to operate the other way at that point. Let's head back to our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Welcome in Nate to the program. Nate, good morning. Thank you for calling in.
Morning, guys. I enjoy being a fan of the Preds because they actually do care about people. They care about their players, well-being and everything. They have been known for that for a long time. Sometimes I think they care too much. And I have a feeling that this is one of those situations where the organization and Trotz are going to be all in their feels, and they're going to go off their feels instead of off their minds and thinking of what would be best for the organization in the long run. That's my concern. And I think that's been voiced pretty prevalently throughout the weeks, months. So y'all have a great day, guys.
Thanks, Nate. Appreciate it. I mean, the other part of this is, like, I just don't love the idea of treating somebody like they have something they don't have. Like, you have enough people who already have full control over what happens.
Right.
You don't need to add another one to it.
Well, just say you do too.
Yeah.
You have double secret full control.
By the way, Ryan O'Reilly's agent could have negotiated that in.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I get, like, look, first of all, I agree with Nate, and I think that's great. That's been a great thing about this franchise. I mean, they've moved guys before,
Sure,
who didn't want to be moved. Like, that happens.
Traded Shea Weber. He didn't want to get traded.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, the most beloved guy in the franchise, right? Like, these things happen. So, like, they've still had to do a lot of the business of pro sports over the years. And with this one, it's, you have so much respect for the guy. I get it. And who doesn't? Like, no one in this league doesn't respect Ryan O'Reilly or think as highly about him as you can think of a hockey player. But at the same time, like, sometimes business is business. And I do wonder, it's like the thing Elliot Friedman's talking about with Stamkos. Like, is Ryan O'Reilly happy here, even if there's a complete sell-off around him?
That's a good question.
And he's still like, yeah, I don't care. I'm
because
good.
Underlying in all of this with O'Reilly, Stamkos, all of it is the belief that they're going to get it done and they're going to make the playoffs. Like, they believe that.
Yeah.
And they could be right. I have no idea. What a good day yesterday. They could be right. But if that is taken out from under them, how much does that change the way they view the situation?
Yeah, like, I get it. It'd be great if you could just let them find out and then make moves.
Right.
That is the offseason, but this is the reality of the trading deadline. Sometimes you can really help yourself, and I think with him in particular, this is the sweet spot.
We'll be joined by Greg Wyshynski from ESPN coming up next. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode, 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ian Safar here with you. The NHL trade deadline coming up on Friday. Preds are 4 points out of a playoff spot heading into tonight's game against Columbus. To help us talk about all that, we head to our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Welcome in our friend Greg Wyshynski from ESPN. Greg, good morning. How are you?
So what's the bigger shock, that the Predators are that distance from a playoff spot, or that they have to leap over the San Jose Sharks to get there? My goodness.
That's a good question.
Who could have even predicted that before the season?
Well, now, Greg, was, it's always jarring. Like, you look at the standings, obviously we know they change all the time, but I woke up this morning and the last wild card team right now is Edmonton. I'm like, all right, yeah. Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. Last wild card spot right now.
There's a lot of sort of X factors going on this season that we didn't anticipate. I don't think we anticipated the Sharks thing happening. I don't think in the East we anticipated some of the teams that are in the bottom of that conference being where they are. And obviously one of those teams is Seattle. That's, the rise of the Kraken, so as it were. I feel like I'm talking about Clash of the Titans here. Is one of the more unexpected things. They got a new coach in Lane Lambert. Their goaltending figured itself out. They're getting enough offense, and they've become a real disturber in that Pacific Division, which is not great news, as you mentioned, for the Preds, because now all of a sudden they've got to have an Oilers team in the wild card instead of somebody else.
Yep, absolutely. So let's start there. Preds have, it was a horrible start to the year. They pulled themselves out of it, and they're at least in the mix here. They're 4 points out. Tough result for them yesterday against Detroit, but a couple of games before the deadline. And on the one hand, you got a bunch of veterans on the team, Greg, that, as you know, have done a lot of winning, and they want to make a push here and make the playoffs. And on the other hand, you've got an opportunity, particularly with a guy like Ryan O'Reilly, that if you sell off, probably going to get a pretty significant return for him. So if you're Barry Trotz this week, how are you handling the deadline for the Nashville Predators?
Well, it's a double-edged sword question, because it's how I'd like him to handle it and how I think he'll handle it. Yeah. How I'd like him to handle it is to be a realist and to look at the standings and look at the teams in front of you and understand that while it's going to be a real fun finish, it may not ultimately result in this team making the playoffs in the West. And, I don't want to discount making the playoffs. It's a lot of playoff revenue. It's good experience for the younger players, but it's just going to be tough to get in. So then the question then becomes, what do you do? Well, if I were Barry Trotz, rather, I'd go and have some difficult conversations with my veterans and try to maximize what is going to be a market where I think there's teams looking for a Ryan O'Reilly. I think there's teams looking for a Jonathan Marchessault. So I think there are teams that will be in business to grab those guys. What I think Barry will ultimately do is completely defer to his guys. And if they want to stick around for a playoff race, they'll probably stick around for a playoff race. And that's just, to Barry's credit, that's his character. But I don't know if it ultimately serves the best interests of the team.
No, I don't think it does. We've been talking a lot about that, Greg. Well, on O'Reilly in particular, what do you think? What do you think the return might be, and who might be most interested?
Oh God, any team with a want and need for a great defensively oriented third line center. And it's funny, we always say defensively oriented. His offensive season this year is insane. He's been one of the best two-way centers in the league this year. Listen, there's a ton of teams that are in the market for a center, Colorado being maybe chief among them. I think that there's been some connections drawn between themselves and another former Av, which is Nazem Kadri of the Calgary Flames. I think O'Reilly could certainly be an interesting fit in a place like Utah. I think O'Reilly could be an interesting fit in a place like Boston. There's a ton of teams that are in the market for a center of his abilities. And the thing that makes him special is it's not just like he's a great offensive player and one of the best face-off men that's in the league in the last 20 years, but he's also got that insanely great playoff resume of helping to bring the Blues a Stanley Cup and then winning the Conn Smythe in the process. So he's a total package player. His age is a concern, but from a contractual standpoint, money-wise and everything else, he's clearly one of the most desirable guys in the market if he gets there.
So, Greg, as you know, you flash back to mid-November and some of the conversations we were having about Steven Stamkos, it's like, man, what has happened here? And then since then, he's gone on an absolute tear. He's reached 30 goals again. But, if you're him, you've got total control on what's going on here. You've got a no-movement clause. You're 36 years old. And I think you would agree. I don't think the Predators are on the precipice of competing for a championship here. So how do you think he views not only where the team is right now, but where he's at in his career with 2 more years left on his deal?
Yeah, it's funny about his offense. I think it was Brady Shea who told me earlier this season, goal scorers don't all of a sudden forget how to score goals, right? So it's just like a matter of time before he can kind of figure it out, and boy, did he. Here's the answer, man. At his age and at this point in his career, I think family is paramount. And so there's a level of comfortability now for him in Nashville. It's obviously a place that he chose to live and wanted to live. There's going to be other opportunities that'll be maybe intriguing, including a return back to Toronto where, he's got roots. But ultimately, I think it comes down to his comfortability. I mean, yeah, we could say he's going to be chasing a cup or wanting to play for a contender and play games that are maybe a bit more meaningful than the ones the Predators are going to be playing this season. But I think based on what he said publicly, at least, he's content to be in a playoff race and content to continue to fulfill his contract with the Predators. So there'd be a market for him for sure. I mean, he's really turned his season around, like you said. But I think that ultimately, he's the one who I look at and say, I would be surprised if he moved by Friday.
Greg, how do you view the job done this year by Andrew Brunette with the Preds?
Well, I mean, turn him around. I mean, there's a lot of factors for that. But, I was talking to somebody about Bruno the other day, actually, who knew him when he was an associate coach in Jersey. And, he's a solid coach with a good a good view of the kind of offensive system he wants to play. I think he's got a good temperament for rough waters. I was thinking a lot about that when we had the Predators struggling earlier this season, when the fact that his first head coaching job was coming in and picking up the pieces after Joel Quenneville had to retire in Florida, or had to resign rather in Florida. That wasn't a very easy job, and he managed it. And I think he's got a real knack for trying to lead teams out of the abyss. We'll see what the next GM thinks of him. I think that's the real question on Bruno's mind right now, and a lot of people's minds. But I think he's acquitted himself well this season after a really bad start.
So, Greg, I think one of the most interesting names to me this week is Robert Thomas in St. Louis. I mean, you're talking about a 26-year-old player who's 2 years removed from an 86-point season at center. And I mean, just frankly, those guys don't become available that much. Now, as we know, Alex Steen's taken over for Doug Armstrong next year. It's kind of a retool going on in St. Louis. So what do you make of Robert Thomas and his potential availability this week? And is if they move on from him, is that a mistake for St. Louis in your mind?
Oh, that's a good question. Because I don't think it is, because I do think that they need a more significant teardown than maybe they admit there. Just because of the age of some of the people on that roster, and maybe the roster is built for a different time in the NHL than where we are right now. But, Thomas is, God, when's the last time we've had a number one center come available at the trade deadline like this? I mean, it's with that kind of term and his age. His injury history gives me a little pause. It seems like he does duck out of the lineup a bit during his career, but when he's in, I mean, he's the number one guy. So what's the cost of acquisition? It's really high. I've talked to a bunch of general managers this week that have a sense of what the market is for Thomas, and they all tell me that it's a major blue chip prospect. It's young guys that are on the roster. It's going to be a Quinn Hughes level of return for a guy who, much like Quinn Hughes, doesn't often become available. I think the really important thing to remember here, though, boys, is that the Blues don't feel like they need to trade him. I think there's a lot of patience there that isn't really being taken into consideration. It's not a trade they have to make right now. If they wanted to make it still, they could do it in the summer and probably find a more robust market once teams get their caps in order to try to acquire him. Or they just keep him around because, like we talked about, he's a pretty good player.
Greg, last thing for you. I mean, we talked about Edmonton to start this segment here. I'm curious from your perspective here. McDavid, we would all agree, is the best player on the earth. He might be the most talented hockey player I've ever seen with my two eyes. And keep in mind, I'm not old enough to have watched like prime Gretzky or Lemieux.
We know you're young.
Thank you. Appreciate that. But we all know how great McDavid is. But I mean, he just really hasn't. I mean, he's not got a cup yet. Obviously, they just won the silver medal. The question from earlier this past week about Stanley Cups finding other people and not him. But like, how much pressure is on him right now to close this season out, compete for a championship, and ultimately win one over the next couple of years here in Edmonton?
First off, I'm glad you almost addressed him by his proper name, which is silver medalist Connor McDavid.
Yes.
I think it's important that we
Go America.
we affix that to as many Canadians as we can going forward. You know what? Here's the thing about Connor that I find really interesting. In every other sport, when you're that guy on that level, I do think that the world comes crashing down on you if you don't win a championship. And listen, he's going to get questions about it, and no one wants to see this guy go into the Hall of Fame without a Stanley Cup ring because, like, he's that good. The thing about Connor, though, is he's got kind of plausible deniability when it comes to his championship prospects. I think people look at his time in Edmonton and they blame Edmonton. They don't blame McDavid. Like, McDavid dragged that team to the Stanley Cup final twice. It's not his. He can't play goal. like there's other things that have gone wrong with that team beyond what McDavid's been able to do. Yeah, he's going to get knocked for not winning the big one. But when it comes to his NHL career, I think he's done everything he can to try to win there, including taking a short-term contract to keep their window open to win with him and Draisaitl there.
Yep.
But ultimately, if it doesn't happen, I don't think it's going to fall on his shoulders. I think it's going to fall on the organization's shoulders. And then, hopefully he comes to like LA or something and they win. Or Nashville. Who knows?
Hey.
Who knows where he's going to go?
Yeah, let's
Somewhere in the United
get
States.
that started. Yeah, get in America. Greg, I know it's a really busy week. You're kind with your time as always. Appreciate you taking time to be with us today, and we'll talk to you soon, my friend.
Anytime. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, Greg Wyshynski, our guest here from ESPN. We'll have the Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode coming up next. Bruce Feldman from The Athletic will be with us at 8:30. All that coming up. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5 The Game.
Sometimes he wakes up on the wrong side of the bed. And sometimes he's just, well, Joe.
Awkward moment. Let's do it.
This is the Rex Rant, now on Robby and Rexrode.
You know who else doesn't know diddly? Me.
I'm Paul Kuharsky. No, I'm Paul Kuharsky. I'll say my name 1,000 times.
Makes you want to puke.
I haven't bought my own shirt in a long time.
Joe, do you have pointy nipples that show through the polo?
Next spring meetings, a Feinbaum Rexrode shirtless desk appearance on the beach.
I'm not very good at assessing bodies with shirts on.
I got length, you know.
And it's getting bigger and bigger.
Think this is mating season.
I'm sickened either way. I'm just sickened.
Why are people still saying stupid crap like this?
You might want to sing it note for note. Don't worry.
It is time for the Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode. You can check it out every morning here on the program. By the way, the spring meetings for the SEC, not that far away. So we need to start probably organizing this Feinbaum Rexrode shirtless desk appearance on the SEC network.
Well, the only reason I went last year is because I was doing a story on Feinbaum. I can't do a story on Feinbaum every year, right?
Sure you can.
I mean, I guess I could.
Yeah. What's to stop?
I mean, he's interesting. There's enough stories about Feinbaum.
You know what would be even more interesting of that story? If you guys did a shirtless desk appearance on the SEC network.
That is true.
The ratings would spike.
Yeah, sex sells. And thank you, Ian, for coming with my other song that makes me want to punch something or somebody. My God, like what's worse? Which is the worst song? That'd be actually a good poll for the listeners. Bobby McFerrin, Don't Worry, Be Happy, or Beach Boys, Kokomo.
Both good songs.
Like they're both just horrific songs. And I don't think we tie songs to times in life, right? So I probably think some of the stuff from the early 90s is like better than it is, although I still think it holds up awfully well. You know, my Pearl Jam, my Nirvana, my Smashing Pumpkins, etc.
Sure.
You know, my Wu-Tang Clan. I mean, you know, I still think that stuff is like some of the best music ever made. And yes, this was like high school and like pop radio. Some of the stuff in the 80s was horrible, especially in the late 80s. But I really think those songs are absolutely objectively awful. So let me know what you think on that, on which one of those is worse. So I got two possibilities today. I guess I could try to knock out, but I think I'll go with this, and then we will probably just stick with this because it's heading this way, and we made so much fun about it. I thought when it was first proposed, it was just like, oh my God, this guy is such a clown. We're all going to laugh at him. It'll never come to this. Oh, fine. Eli Drinkwitz said so too, but whatever. Who cares about him? But you mentioned the Josh Heupel interview with Chris Lowe, and man, kind of buried in that. Don't
get me started.
I know, buried in that article. You know, here's a segment from Chris's story. He says the playoff will remain at 12 games in 2026, but Heupel told On3 he prefers a 24-team format, which the Big Ten has proposed. Quote from Josh Heupel, quote, the way college football is constantly changing, that probably makes the most sense. Really? Does it? This is where coaches, like, we can't let coaches have a say because they're just going to choose things that give them more job security. Again, it's just like the NCAA tournament expansion. Oh, yeah, let's get it to about 90, and then a few more of us will not get fired because, you know, you get fired if you don't make the NCAA tournament after a few years. So now we're going to go to 24. So everybody can say, hey, we're a playoff team. What do you want from me? We're a playoff team. Do you know how low the bar is? Not to mention all the other things that are dumb. The only thing about the 24-team format that I do like is, you know, conference championship games. You can't have this many rounds of a playoff that we already have and still have those. So this would make it like you can't even consider doing them anymore. So I guess I would like that. But other than that, it's just ridiculous. And I'm telling you, it's not just Josh Heupel here.
No.
There's serious momentum for it. And the coaches are driving it. And again, it's just all these different groups in college sports, self-serving. And here we are again.
Oh, this has been predictable from the start, which is why I said expanding from 4 was stupid. I mean, this is never going to stop. And so here we are, and it's not stopping. Who knew? Shocker. It's amazing that it's played out this way. I mean, it's just dumb. And here's the other part of this.
Well, it hasn't played out yet.
Well, it's going to. I guarantee it. And the other part of this is, here's what I guess the coaches don't realize in this, which is fine. They'll realize it when they get fired. Just because, when it does expand to 24 and we get there at some point, just making the playoffs not going to be good enough anymore.
Right.
Exactly. You don't understand. Josh Heupel is not going to be, well, we made the playoffs. It's like, well, good. 24 teams make the playoff, Josh. That's not going to that level of making the playoff used to be an accomplishment. It's not going to be moving forward anymore.
Right.
They don't seem to clock that in their head.
Exactly. No, it won't be. But that is the mindset, is everything's about the playoff. And again, that was my whole problem with the 4, is that everything else everything else became meaningless. Like good bowl games, conference championships, all that stuff. So it's well, okay, so expand it. 24 is, again, basically college football in a lot of ways, and I don't necessarily have a problem with this theoretically, just like college basketball. It's pro sports, it's minor league pro sports, so you emulate the pros. I think college basketball, some of the things they're doing with the on-court product, for example, they're not calling every little tiny nitpicky travel anymore in college basketball, and I think it helps the game. And they've gotten rid of all the flopping in college basketball, which helps the watchability of the game. We're seeing scoring. So there's a lot of things you should do to emulate. Well, we already complain about the NHL and NBA allowing half their teams to be in the playoff, And I understand that there's a bigger percentage of teams here, what in Power 5, but it's okay, so how many Power 5 teams do we have then? So we have, 65, I guess, something like that. I think that's right.
Power 4 now, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. In basketball, it's Power 5 still because you throw in the Big East. Right. Okay, so the Power 4. So 24, so more than a third of your teams, and it's
ridiculous.
Yeah, look at the number in the pro leagues that have the numbers that were wow, that's a lot, and even them, some of them are talking about expanding too, which is just comical. I mean, all the sports, it's look at what baseball's done. I don't like that either. It's well, I guess we could just turn sports into, let's just have it's a big tournament the whole time. It's just a tournament.
I remember in sports when making the playoffs meant something. That was fun.
I mean, baseball, as a baseball fan, I understand. And again, by the way, same guy is you got Tony Petitti has his hands in both. It used to be such a big deal to win the division, to get in. And I mean, I grew up with the ALCS, NLCS, and World Series. And that, to me, I'd go back to that right now in a minute. But 24, you may be right. I mean, I can't sit here and with a straight face say this is not going to happen. I'm still hopeful, though. I mean, I think 16 is probably what it should just end at. Be it 16 and end there. I'd be fine with 12 forever. But 16, that's a fine stopping point. 24 is a joke.
Well, it's never good enough. I mean, look, when they get to 24, teams 25 through 32 will be sitting there whining about how they're not in. I mean, it's never good enough. And that's been the problem with this the whole time. And we're going to get to a place where you look at it and people are talking about it on the text line right now. It's why do you even play the regular season? Take a team like Ohio State, and the playoff expands to 24. What the heck are they playing the regular season for? They're going to get in the playoff. Why do they care? Right? It totally ruins the sport.
And a big part of this, whatever it is if you're not, again, this is TV content. We're talking about money.
Yep.
Well, TV executives, you better figure out a way to give us good games in September, man.
Yeah. I mean, this should be studied. It's going to go from unquestionably the sport that had the best regular season, unquestionably, it's not even close, to a sport where the regular season, and probably at the end of this, when it gets to 24, which it will in the next 10 years, they're going to, in a 15-year span, they're going to go from the best regular season in sports to a regular season that is totally meaningless in a 15-year span. And they just don't care. So that's where we are. And it's hard for me to get mad at the coaches because I understand it's always been about job preservation for them. I don't expect them to change. but it's everybody else at some point. The common sense has got to step in, and it just never does with these people. It's amazing. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. We'll get back into the NFL, get back into the franchise tag deadline, which is today. What could that mean for the Titans and free agency? More coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 1025 The Game. Final hour, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ian Safar here with you on this Tuesday morning. We are presented by Green Ventures Landscaping. Property managers, if you manage it, they maintain it. Visit greenventureslandscaping.com. We'll have Bruce Feldman from The Athletic with us coming up at 8:30. Got a lot of stuff to get into with Bruce, so looking forward to that on the program coming up here in about 30 minutes or so. Taking your thoughts on the Titans at 615-737-1025. By the way, Tennessee Brew Works, the official craft beer of Titans offseason coverage here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. It is the final day for teams to apply the franchise and transition tags. And we went through some of that earlier in the show. Going to be interesting to see what happens with Indianapolis with the Daniel Jones situation. Does Alec Pierce make it to free agency? Some other situations to monitor around the league. You've got Kenneth Walker in Seattle. You've got Trey Hendrickson with the Cincinnati Bengals. We've seen a couple of tags applied already with George Pickens being franchised by the Cowboys and Kyle Pitts by the Atlanta Falcons. So we'll see what else is in store there today. There's not a ton of like actual franchise tag candidates that are out there, but something to keep your eye on today. And of course, Titans fans, Joe, monitoring the Tyler Linderbaum situation pretty closely in Baltimore to see whether or not he makes it to free agency. There will be no shortage of suitors for Linderbaum if he actually makes it out there.
Yeah, Linderbaum, Biadish. Those are two who was released by the Commanders. So interesting there. What's going on there? I don't know what the market there is. Maybe there's some circumstances don't know about. But in either case, talking about starting centers that you should pursue. And the Titans should be, to me, all in. If by chance, especially Linderbaum gets to the market, I still have a feeling that that's going to get worked out. I just can't believe Baltimore would let that happen right now, given all the other things that are in flux there. But if so, that would be well worth the pursuit.
It would. It's going to cost you $27 million. That shouldn't matter to the Titans. He's a great player, and they got plenty of cap space. So I have no problem with the Titans spending a lot of money on good players. They need more good players around here. So we'll see what happens on the Baltimore front. I'm really interested in Indianapolis. Like, do they find actual deals, long-term deals with both Pierce and Daniel Jones? If not, like there's speculation, maybe Indianapolis puts the transition tag on Daniel Jones today, which we'll see. You know, the number for the franchise tag for Alec Pierce would be high. Like, I don't know that he's a $27 million receiver. It would be for 1 year. So you can do with that what you will, I guess, if you're the Colts. But, I mean, if you're looking at free agent options at wide receiver for the Titans, not a ton that are going to be out there. We talked about Dobbs. If Pierce makes it to free agency, I mean, definitely that's somebody I'd have interest in if I'm the Titans. You know, what's going to happen with Wan'Dale Robinson. But, like, beyond that, there's not a ton that I think are either fits for the Titans or that are going to be out there.
You're going to ignore Murfreesboro's own Juwan Jennings?
Well, I guess I'll believe he gets out there when I see it. But
yeah,
I'd love it. I'd love to see it.
Yeah, I would too. But it's also that would be like he's done a great job. He's been key for those guys. I also think like Juwan Jennings might be one of those little bit maybe overpaid, overestimated. He's a good player, but he's not a star receiver. He's not a number one receiver.
He's like a really good number 3 is what I think he is.
Yeah. And who can stand in and be a good too.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I mean, the number we talked about the Spotrac numbers earlier, like the projection. I think that the projection for Alec Pierce was $20.2 million. Their projection for Juwan Jennings is $22 million, $22.6, which I just don't know that I would do that. But
yeah, I don't know that I would either. Like I like him a lot. Again, he's done a great job. Vanderbilt fans, you may not like him, but I get it. But I think I would take that money. If I could get the starting center, I'd spend it on that.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
I don't know. As far as just
he's not getting $22 million.
An overall philosophy for the Titans, when you have money in a strategy, do you go like contra spread shot,
right,
or do you go big money, few players?
Contra, nice.
I don't.
That is nice. That's a good question. Yeah, I think
Which
to
is
me,
the better? Which is the better strategy?
Well, we've seen both, right? Like Washington a couple of years ago, they signed a ton of people. Like it was just
they
didn't make a ton of like huge splashes, but they just signed a ton of people on 1-year deals. And look, obviously the biggest thing was they drafted Jay Daniels and he played great. So that was the biggest thing. But they signed all these people that, Dan Quinn got some guys on defense that played really well in his scheme, and it worked out. Now, last year, it didn't work out. And, obviously Daniels being hurt was part of that. We've also seen like the Patriots last year, they signed a couple of big free agents and brought them in. And on top of their quarterback taking a massive step from year 1 to year 2, they signed some really important pieces in the offseason that accelerated their growth, and they ended up being a better team, probably a better roster than we thought they were heading into the year. So we've seen examples, I think, recently of kind of both philosophies there.
Yeah, I mean, to answer your question, to me, it's like, first of all, the Titans are bad enough that you'd kind of do both. But it's like, can you get your targets that you truly covet? Well, then great, you're spending the big money on them. If you don't just spend the money to spend the money, which I think maybe, like, for example,
they did that with Ridley, right?
Exactly what I was going to say. We heard that from Rand Carthon after they signed Ridley because they lost Alshire and Autry, right? Yep. I think that's what he was basically saying. Like, they wanted to retain him. They didn't. Okay, let's go spend on Ridley. Like, you don't have to. It will be disappointing to all of us if the Titans don't spend money, right? But at the same time, you have to hold your convictions and be like, I mean, you're still going to go out and you're going to add some pieces. You're going to spend some money, but you can't just be like, we have to take this money and we have to spend it.
Yeah.
Use it for what you believe is going to work only.
Well, and I think I don't really have a problem. Like, let's say Linderbaum. That's a perfect example. I know he's a great player. He has demonstrated to be a great player, and he's like 25 or however old he is. So if it comes down to like a bidding war, if he makes it to free agency and it's a bidding war and that's all he's interested in is like how much money he can make, I have no problem with the Titans overpaying for somebody 100%.
Like that. They have to.
That's when you have as much cap and as much money as they have available to spend, overpay. Now, I think to your point, there are people out there that are going to be mad if they just don't spend all the money they have this offseason. And it's like, well, I understand they got money to spend. I still don't want them spending a ton of money on stupid decisions, right? Like, that's how you could still get yourself into trouble spending money on players that are not worth that money.
Yeah.
So
there's another offseason after this one.
Yeah, there's another one after this one. So, like, I mean, it all comes down. You have to sign the right people, right? And you have more money to operate with if you're the Titans this offseason, but you got to sign the right people.
Yeah, exactly. Now, we won't know. Everybody looks right because, I mean, it's easier now to go back on Rand Carthon and rip this or that or wonder how awake he was on this flight or that flight. But at the time, I don't remember a lot of – it's kind of like some of the stuff Trotz did with the Preds. At the time, I don't remember a lot of first guessing. I mean, I'll raise my hand. L'Jarius Sneed, love it.
There was a lot of first guessing on L'Jarius Sneed.
I mean, I didn't do it. So I don't remember getting in heated arguments with people. I mean, maybe – I don't know. Was he?
No, there was a lot of first guessing on L'Jarius Sneed with the knee. I mean, we had entire shows about like, why are the Titans willing to do this and no one else is?
Right. So there was discussion about it, right? But that's still different than like, this is a bad move, right? Like, here's a counterpoint to the Sneed move. What is up with the knee? I don't know, right? That's still different to me than like, this is a bad move. Now we all say, what a disastrous move that was. Again, when it happened, maybe I was on an island. I don't remember it that way, but I was like.
I don't think you were on an island. I'm just saying, I think there was plenty of, why are the Titans willing to do this when no one else is? What does that tell you about the knee? And is this going to be a disaster?
Yeah.
It turns out it was. Now, there's no way for us to know that at the time because, the counterpoint to that was always, well, if he plays like he just played all 17 games or whatever it was, and he looked great out there.
Right.
So,
yeah. What we had seen on the field was, well, why wouldn't that still be him?
Yeah.
So, bottom line is, if they do spend,
everybody wins.
It will be generally, it'll be generally celebrated, and then we'll see if it's actually good later.
Yeah. I mean, been plenty of teams that have. We just mentioned 2 examples of free agency working out the last couple of years, where Commanders spent some money and brought in a bunch of different players at work. Patriots did it last year at work. There are probably far more examples of when it doesn't work that way. So hopefully the Titans fall into the former category. 615
They're due.
737 1025. Our phone number 615 737 1025. More of your thoughts to get to on the Titans and NFL free agency. Bruce Feldman will be with us at 8:30. All that coming up. Robby and Rexrode 1025 the game. Right Time HVAC, Cromwell Media teaming up to bring comfort back to your home. Is your heating system struggling or completely out of commission following the winter storms? If so, nominate yourself for the Right Time Home Rescue and tell us your story. Enter today at thegamenashville.com/HVAC, and you can win a new HVAC system installed by Right Time HVAC. Right Time HVAC, locally owned and operated. There's never a wrong time to call Right Time. We'll have Bruce Feldman with us from The Athletic here in about 10 minutes. By the way, a lot of interesting stuff from Bruce. He came out with a piece today.
Yeah.
Apparently, this is the fastest NFL combine class of all time. So I think only the quarterback position didn't record on average their fastest 40 time, and they were the second fastest of all time. So,
and that, I was going to say, and that was with Taylor Green.
On a 4.3.
Doing ridiculous stuff at the combine. Guy, we hadn't talked about it all. I wonder if, like, Matt Jones, former Arkansas quarterback who becomes a receiver, because Taylon Green is
I thought you were talking about Matt Jones, the radio host. I was like, okay.
I think those are different people. I hope so. Nice Kentucky hat, though, that you wear on press row. But I wonder if, Taylon Green becomes the next Matt Jones, Arkansas quarterback to receiver.
Maybe so. By the way, one thing that we'll get to with Feldman, I'm going to read one thing that he put in here. Jeremiah Love, talking about the 4.36 40, says, count me as someone who thinks he'll be even better than last year's top running back, Ashton Genty. One thing I heard from a few NFL people is how complete Love is, and that he's as good as pass protection as any back in this class. So I know the Love did his 40 the other day, and then apparently they had him out there running the route tree receivers.
You look good doing
that, so I could pass protect. There's no secret why he's at the top or near the top of a lot of people's board here.
It's a fascinating situation. It is a fascinating situation for the Titans. I did see some people also making the connection on the app you're no longer on, Twitter.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Thanks.
With drafting McNair, and then you draft Eddie George. And now here we go. Cam Ward.
There is precedent.
Now, of course, we're talking about a different league in the mid-90s.
Correct.
When those draft picks were made, as opposed to now, 30 years ago, a little bit different. But, there's some excitement, and I get it, and it's going to be a fascinating discussion with Jeremiah Love, because I'm still right now, I'm picking David Bailey if I have that pick, and he's there, but I get it.
I get it, too. Corey Curtis texted me. We were talking about Alec Pierce, the $27 million franchise tag hit that it would be. He texted me. He said, Alec Pierce at $27 million is $570,000 per catch. It's like, yeah, it's that is
20 yards per, though.
That is true. I mean, we've talked about that with Pierce. I mean, he doesn't have a lot of catches.
Not high volume.
In 2024, he caught 37 passes, and this past year he caught 47. So you're talking about a guy that's been in the league for 4 years, and his career high for receptions in a season was 47 that he just had. But yet, 22.3 per catch in 2024 and 21.3 per catch this year.
It really is fascinating.
It is.
Because you do watch Colts games, and
there's somebody that
he's
not the ball.
He's not involved.
Yeah.
Like Pittman's getting the ball, and I move. Obviously Jonathan Taylor's getting the ball out, and then it's like every once in a while, there's a shot to Alec Pierce.
Well, and look,
So what is he in an offense where he's higher usage?
Well, we watch a lot of the Colts. We don't watch the Colts like on every down basis. So I don't know, but is there a reason that he's only catching? Can he only do the deep ball, right? Like, is that all he is a deep threat? Because if that's all you are, I got a tough time paying you $25 million a year, right?
Yeah.
If you can't do more than that, that's a problem, right? Now, the Colts love him, and they're trying to get a deal worked out with him, but I mean, the numbers are what the numbers are. I mean, his career high for catches in a season is 47. It's not very many.
Yeah, I think the way the Colts are reportedly proceeding here, probably tells you that, like there's a 60-70 catch with more like a 17-18 average coming up for him.
Yeah,
which is good, great.
Yeah,
yeah. Like I think that's what they believe. Like, I think about a guy like Jamison Williams in Detroit, incredible speed. and he can, they've been able to take advantage of him vertically. But early on, it was very much like just that. Like, give him an end around, throw deep to him. Now he's actually adding more to that, and it's a little bit more over the middle of the field and after the catch and stuff like that, And that's, if Alec Pierce is going to get paid this kind of money, he needs to be much more involved.
I would agree. But again, he's one of the best options that are going to be out there. Like, I think Titans fans will be very disappointed if they don't add a significant wide receiver in free agency, right? Especially like if you're operating under the mindset that I think a lot of Titans fans are, that number 4 overall is either going to be, I guess, an edge rusher or like Jeremiah Love.
Now that Carnell Tate ran a 4.53, I mean, he's what, a 3rd-round pick?
You remove him from the
right?
board.
Yeah.
Get Brazel in there.
How about Brazel? What, 4.37? Is that right?
It's 6
At
foot
that
4.
size?
Yeah, pretty good. So
Brazel at 35. That's not terrible.
It's not terrible. But if the Titans don't sign a wide receiver in free agency, I like a lot of Titans fans will be disappointed. But my question is going to be like, okay, well, I would be too, but who's out there? He's a Dobbs, and that's it. How attractive is Wan'Dale Robinson?
Are all of them more attractive? I think most Titans would say yes, but are all of them more attractive than Calvin Ridley?
That's the other question. So a lot to work through there on the Mike Borgonzi front over the next week here. 615-737-1025, our phone number. Bruce Feldman from The Athletic will join us coming up next. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode, 1025 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ian Safar here with you on this Tuesday morning. And we head to our phone line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Welcome in our friend Bruce Feldman to the program from The Athletic. Bruce, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, guys. How you doing?
Doing awesome, man. Appreciate you taking time to be with us. Bruce, we're going through, I mean, obviously the freaks list that you do is just appointment reading every year, and you just come off the NFL Combine and some interesting stuff from that we'll get into with you here in just a few minutes. I do want to start this, with some local interest around here, and that's Eli Stowers, who obviously was very productive in his career at Vanderbilt. The Stowers-Pavia combination over the last couple of years has been really fun to watch, and he had an outstanding performance setting records at the NFL Combine. What did you make of that? What do you make of him at the next level with just the athletic profile that he has at the tight end position?
Yeah, I think it was like an awesome showing for him. You're talking about a guy who we knew going in was going to test really well. I mean, he was an elite jumper coming out of high school, high jump champ in Texas. And I had him on the freaks list high last year, and he had vertical jumped 39 inches. That went up to 45.5. And that's crazy to make 6.5 inch improvement when you were already, what you would have thought most guys are tapped out at almost 40 inches. And I think, the broad jump was 11.3. I mean, super explosive athlete. He's a guy who does not have ideal size for an NFL tight end. I mean, I think they're looking for somebody who'd be an inch or two taller and honestly about 20 pounds heavier. But in terms of like the explosiveness and the athleticism, and I think the savvy he has from being a quarterback most of his life, I think he's going to be a unique weapon people will use. He's not going to be, he's probably going to be the other tight end just because you need that inline blocking component. But I feel like you're going to see a downfield threat in him that's just very different because he's really, some of the coaches I talked to in Indy last week really described him as more of like a jumbo receiver. And I think you see now very different kinds of personnel groupings. I think he's going to be a really unique weapon for NFL teams.
So, Bruce, I think the most fascinating thing about this draft, you've written some about it here, and it's going to be written about a lot between now and then, is Ruben Bain. So, first of all, I want to try this. So I have this theory out on you a little bit, which is, obviously the arm length, it's as you point out, no one's been drafted in the first round last 20 years. We know like no one's had a 10-sack season with that arm length. I look at it almost like college basketball. You can be a dominant center in college basketball. You're playing in the post at like 6'9", but then everybody knows like you go to the NBA and it's like, those guys are all 6'11", 7 foot, 7'1", and you can't play the same way. So sometimes, bigs at a certain size in college basketball, it's just not going to translate. Now, maybe that's extreme because I also look at Ruben Bain. I'm like, I don't care where you line him up. He's going to wreck people and he's going to make plays. And maybe he kind of blows up this narrative a little bit. Where do you fall on that? Where do you think ultimately he's going to go in this draft?
I think he'll go in the top 10. He's too disruptive. He's too powerful. He has a really good burst. And some of the things he's able to do, I think, can compensate for, because I had asked the D-line coach I had breakfast with in Indy on, I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday. And I said, is it really a big difference between 32 inches and 31 inches for arm length? And he said it matters. He was like, but if you can get on guys really quick, it kind of changes the calculus a little bit. And he is more powerful than most of the edge rushers you see. And so I think with the tenacity, and we saw him dominate some really good linemen in the playoffs. And when I say obviously in the college playoffs, we're not talking about Anthony Munoz here, but we are talking about really good players who are going to play in the NFL and guys that people are very high on, and they watch what he can do. I got a text from a buddy of mine who I've known for a long time who's been in the NFL for like now a decade. And he was just said, Aaron Donald was not prototype at all. He said, but he's just super explosive, and he kind of changed the narrative when he got to the NFL. Now, yeah, there were some teams who because he also tested off the charts. Bane is not going to put up like Sonny Styles numbers in the testing, but it's just the film is so good. So he's not for everybody. I mean, look, I'll be honest. There's a few guys who come out that, and this goes back to even an Aaron Donald. Like some NFL coaches are like, that's not the kind of scheme fit we want. But I think for other guys, they're going to go, you know what? We love the player. We love what he brings. And in addition, I mean, this was a guy who had more to do with changing the culture and fixing Miami football than any player Mario Cristobal added. I mean, he signed 4 years ago to stay home, and he was the guy who was just, for lack of a better term, the ass kicker every day at practice. And I think that's a tone setter. So I think he's going to be a really good NFL football player. Is he Myles Garrett? No. But he is going, there's a lot of guys who are not exactly the prototype who end up thriving in the NFL just because they have some other things that are just not, you can't measure.
So Bruce, that obviously around here, like the Titans have a laundry list of needs, and running back is not necessarily towards the top of that list. However, I mean, Jeremiah Love, Titans fans are talking about that possibility at number 4, and it doesn't seem like there's anything that guy can't do. And obviously, he just ran a 4.36 40. What do you make of even not even specifically to the Titans, but Jeremiah Love and the player you think he's going to be at the next level?
Yeah, no pun intended, but I love Jeremiah Love.
Nice.
I mean, he is super dynamic athlete, and you saw the speed, obviously, as you guys mentioned. I had conversations with NFL scouts. They think he's by far the best running back in pass protection, which is saying something because there's a couple other guys who are good at it, and they just think that he's been really well coached and his attention to detail is really good. I'll say this, like last year, obviously Ashton Genty went really high to the Raiders. I like Jeremiah Love a lot more than I liked Ashton Genty. I just think he's a different kind of back and has a different gear. I think he will be one of those guys where you're like, okay, I could see him as a top 10 running back. And I didn't see that with Genty. I thought Genty was a terrific college player, but this guy's just different. And I don't know, if the Titans, does David Bailey, I don't fall to them because I think he's to me a really special player who I think is a legit, top 5 guy. But if Bailey's there, I think they probably go in that direction. But, you also have Cam Ward, and you spend a lot of money on him. You want to do everything you can to give him the best chance to flourish. And I think having Jeremiah Love next to him will go a long way into doing that.
Talking to Bruce Feldman for The Athletic. Bruce, as you mentioned, your top 2 freaks are Oregon tight end Kenya Sadiq and then Sonny Styles, Ohio State linebacker. So I'm with you. I'm on the David Bailey train if he's there for the Titans. I do wonder with Sonny Styles. I understand that's not a premium position, but I also think about what San Francisco, who set the tone with everything for that San Francisco defense, right? In the middle of that defense for years, and how different were they without him last year? Is Sonny Styles that kind of player? Like who would you compare him to? And do you think he's so good that he could actually be a top 5 pick?
Yeah, I get I think it's the Fred Warner comparison you were bringing up. And I think he's, because of his height and length at 6'5", he's pretty unique. I mean, he was a safety for a long time. He grew out of it. He obviously, was an elite tester. And I don't think he's the football player at Arvell Reese, his teammate is. And I talked to some coaches in the Big Ten earlier in the season, and they were like, Arvell Reese is a bigger problem than Caleb Downs. Caleb Downs, the safety there for Ohio State, was the guy everybody, and rightly so, was talking about. Reese is the guy who could be the edge rusher, can be the off-ball linebacker. I think Reese has a different level of physicality than Sonny Styles. There's just some violent knockback in him. I don't think that's quite Sonny Styles' game, but because he's so rangy and athletic and explosive, I think he will probably sneak into a lot of conversations about being a top 5 guy. I'm not sure he's that to me might be a little over the skis to me on him. I think he's probably a top 15 guy. And again, we're starting to see, this is a guy who kept getting better and better. So, who knows? Could he be better in the NFL than he was in college? It's entirely possible because he's such a rare athlete. But for me, Arvell Reese is the real headliner out of that defensive group, which has 3 guys who could go in the top, in the top 10 from Ohio State alone.
So, Bruce, I mean, you had a piece at The Athletic this morning that we talked about earlier in the show, just kind of highlighting how fast this draft class is. And I know that, speed doesn't mean everything, but it does show you kind of what you're working with here in this just draft class. What do you make of that? And how does that kind of line up with, what you thought about this group heading into the NFL Combine?
Yeah, I thought this was going to be a really fast class because I just knew a lot of these guys that I had from the Freaks list in last off season. But a couple of things happened. One, and go back to Eli Stowers from Nashville. I mean, the Freaks out-freak themselves. A lot of times It's like a lot for them to match the lofty numbers that their strength coaches tell me about a year earlier. I mean, Stowers blew his away. There was a bunch of guys who blew their numbers away. There was also another piece of this where the guys who aren't very fast, Jonah Coleman, the running back of Washington, is a little banged up. He's a really good running back, but he might be a 4.68 guy or something. Those guys usually didn't run because I think they did not want to get, kind of exposed at a pro day when everybody else is flying. And so you had that, so the averages were going to be so much more impressive because the fast guys did even better than you'd hope. And the slower guys didn't really get up to the line to do those kinds of things. But, on the whole, I still don't think this is as good a draft as this is it's more of a subpar draft than we've seen in the last few years. It just, to me, there's less elite players. Now, I think David Bailey is a better player than Abdul Carter, who went 3rd to the Giants, similar edge guy, but I think Bailey's, better film, more experience in the position. I just liked him more. And I think, again, you're talking about guys going the same range, but if you get, outside of maybe the top 3 or 4, I think then there's some drop off. But the athleticism was remarkable to see, whether it was both Styles brothers or you just go down the list. I mean, I had something in my column today on The Athletic where the number of safeties, I'm not just talking about like defense, cornerbacks, the number of safeties who ran incredibly fast, 6 of them ran 4.40 or faster. I mean, that's remarkable. Yeah. It's like, we're talking about safeties. I think if you told people, going in that many would run 4.50 or better, they'd be like, yeah, that's really good for safeties. I mean, that just speaks to how crazy fast guys have gotten because of all the combine prep. And I think that's a big part of it now. Guys really are smarter about how they train and how they prepare for these things. And so it was kind of really cool to see people really, for lack of a better term, showing out on the big stage.
Bruce, you did mention, Cornell Tate, a little bit disappointing for people. I mean, I wasn't terribly surprised by it, but a 4.53 official time. You mentioned in your piece, CeeDee Lamb ran a 4.50, pretty good player in the NFL. But is I guess I've kind of not Cornell Tate a little bit just because of, Jeremiah Smith's on the other side of him. Sometimes I think it's hard with the Ohio State guys. They're so loaded. Maybe people can look better, by association, but where do you think that drops him? And do you think he is he one of the guys who's going to go higher than maybe he would in some years because of the overall lack of great players in this class?
Yeah, I think it's not to me, there's going to be a big difference when Jeremiah Love is in the draft next year. He is a big notch above all the other receivers in this class. I think there's good receivers. I don't know if there's a great one in it. Now, Tate has good size, not great size. He's over 6'2". He's very polished. I don't know if there's like the wow component of him, but you're also going to factor in the Ohio State piece of this. Jackson Smith and Jigua emerge as one of like the 2 or 3 best receivers in the NFL. He's an Ohio State guy. A few years ago, everybody was raving about Terry McLaurin. You can go through a deep list of, whether it's Garrett Wilson or Chris Olave, there's just Emeka Buka is really, really promising young player. They just keep cranking it out. So you are going to get a really good receiver. You may not get a great one, but you're going to get I feel like he has probably the highest floor of these receivers. And given that, I think, again, I don't see him as a top 10 receiver, a top 10 pick. I think he's a little below that just because I feel like there's, he's good at a lot of things. I don't think there's anything that's elite. Whereas there's plenty of guys who are way twitchier. There's obviously a few who are bigger. There's a bunch who are quicker. I just think he's checking off a lot of boxes, and he's going to be one of those safer picks. Probably more of a safer pick, honestly, than Jordan Tyson. More of a safe pick than Mekhi Lemon, who doesn't have, is a little shorter than people would like. And Mekhi Lemon's not going to run blazing fast. His shuttle times might be really good, but I think that, he was the Blitnikoff winner last year, but he's, around 5'11", and just, I think it depends also on what you're looking for as a receiver. Mekhi Lemon could be another Amon-Ra, which obviously for the Lions has been a great player. I think with Tate, again, I think he's really, really good. I just think, as you said, also he was honestly overshadowed because the best receiver of all that Ohio State has had is still at Ohio State. I mean, he's like Andre Johnson, but he was like Andre Johnson when he was a true freshman, when Andre Johnson wasn't like that really until the end of his Miami career. I mean, so I could see why people are a little bit like, it's any receiver is gonna kind of pale to that comparison.
Well, Bruce, really enjoy your work. You're really kind with your time as always. Appreciate you taking time to be with us this morning, and we will talk to you soon.
My pleasure. Thanks, guys.
Yep, Bruce Feldman from The Athletic, our guest here on the program. We'll wrap up the show coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5 The Game. Final segment of the day, Robby and Rexrode. Went a little long there with Bruce, but he's got really good stuff, so it's worth it. Really good stuff.
Have a good day, everybody.
From Bruce Feldman.
No, Bruce was good. Yeah, he was giving us the info. I got some takes off that. Real quick one.
Roll through them.
I was already out on Carnell Tate, like everything he said there, and just the 4.53.
The 40's what did it for you.
No, I was already out. I'm even more out. Also,
big 40 guy, Joe.
The Bane Aaron Donald thing. It is so fascinating. The whole thing with him, so fascinating. Speaking of arm, Myles Garrett, 35-inch arms, has 19 sacks per season in the last 5.
That's pretty good.
He's a freak, and that's part of what makes him a freak. But I'm fascinated by Ruben Bane. I had another take too, but we can get to it tomorrow.
I thought you were going to come out of your chair over there when he was talking about how Mekhi Lemon's not that fast.
Yeah, easy.
And then the
easy Bruce.
Amon-Ra St. Brown
and then he was going to come out of his chair for another reason.
That made me feel better because
Yes,
that's exactly what I've been saying. It's going to be hard to just be Amon-Ra St. Brown, but it's the exact same model. If he finds the right place that uses him correctly, he's going to be a monster.
Big one for the Preds tonight. They're taking on the Columbus Blue Jackets. And, depending on the result of this game, we'll see what tomorrow brings for the Nashville Predators. Just a few days away from the NHL trading deadline. We'll have you covered all week on that front. That's going to do it for us today here on the program.
Great segment.
Maybe the shortest segment we've ever done.
That's one of the shorter segments. I didn't say anything stupid. That's how short of a segment is required for that to be the case.
Next man up with Jake Lyman coming up next. You're listening to 102.5 The Game.